So, guys, it is Monday, and we are starting the day by talking about the Employment Equity Amendment Act. I know that many people have heard about the Employment Equity Amendment Act, but the truth of the matter is that a lot of people in this country are still confused about what is the Employment Equity Amendment Act, what does it entail, why is it so controversial, what is the purpose of this law, and why are political parties like the DA and other civil organizations working so hard to get it reversed. So, before we get into the messy part of all of this, I want us to go through this small article. I hope that it is going to answer some of the questions that people have about the Employment Equity Amendment Act. So, over here, it says that the Employment Equity Amendment Act refers to changes made to South Africa's Employment Equity Act 55 of 1998, aimed at promoting workplace equity by addressing historical inequalities caused by apartheid and other discriminatory practices. The most recent amendment, the Employment Equity Amendment Act 4 of 2022, was signed into law on the 6th of April 2023 and came into effect on the 1st of January 2025. So this is what they say the Employment Equity Amendment Act is. So let's look at the purpose of the law. What is the purpose of the law? Because this is one of the most important questions that people are asking about this Equity Act. It says that the Act seeks to ensure equitable representation of designated groups, black people, women, and people with disabilities at all occupational levels. Number two, it says that the Act seeks to eliminate unfair discrimination in employment. Number three, it says that the Act seeks to reduce regulatory burdens for small businesses. And number four, it says that the Act seeks to strengthen compliance with employment equity obligations. So, this is the purpose of the Act. So, I want us to actually look at this first purpose of the Act, because it says that the Act seeks to ensure equitable representation of designated groups, black people, women, and people with disabilities at all occupational levels. But when I read this and I read number two, it says that the Act seeks to eliminate unfair discrimination in employment. But number one, it basically says that the purpose of this Act is to discriminate. The purpose of this Act is to discriminate, because right now they are only talking about black people, women, and people with disabilities. What about other groups of people? Are these people actually trying to tell us that the only people that are disadvantaged in this country are black people, women, and people with disabilities? How about the colors? How about the Indians? How about some white people that are not as wealthy as people think? How about some Afrikaners? Why don't this Act actually ensure that the equitable representation of all people at all occupational levels? Because they cannot say that we want to ensure equitable representation of designated groups and say black people, women, and people with disabilities at all occupational levels, and number two, to say that we want to eliminate unfair discrimination in employment. This is discrimination. This is discrimination, and I don't want to lie, guys. I actually understand why are people saying that this act is pure racism. This act is pure racism because why don't you include other groups? Are you telling me that the colors are not included here? Why are the colors are not included? Why are other groups are not included? Because you cannot fight discrimination by basically discriminating against other people. And this is what I'm seeing when I read the purpose of the act. They want to eliminate discrimination by basically discriminating against other people. And this is the reason why maybe this law, it is not as popular as the ANC would actually like to think. So here it talks about the key amendments. And under the key amendments, it also talks about the definition of a designated employer. Under the definition of a designated employer, it says that previously, employers with fewer than 50 employees but exceeding certain turnover threshold were considered designated employers. The amendment removes the turnover threshold, so only employers with 50 or more employees or those bound by specific collective agreements are designated employers. This eases compliance for small businesses. Previously, the employers with fewer than 50 employees but exceeding certain turnover threshold were considered designated employers. The amendment removes the turnover threshold, so only employers with 50 or more employees are designated employers. And guys, don't you see a problem with this? Don't you honestly see a problem with this? Because I can see what these people are doing, but we will get to it. So under the key amendment, again, it also talks about the expanded definition of disabilities. Under the expanded definition of disabilities, it talks about the definition of people with disabilities now includes intellectual and sensory impairments, broadening the scope of protection. The definition of people with disabilities now includes intellectual and sensory impairments, broadening the scope of protection. So under the same key amendments, and this is the part that is mostly contested. It has the sectoral numerical targets. And this is the reason why the DA basically went to the court. And under this section of sectoral numerical target, it says that Section 15A says that the Minister of Employment and Labor is empowered to identify national economic sectors and set numerical employment equity targets after consultation. These targets aim to ensure equitable representation of designated groups across all occupational levels. Draft targets must be published for public comment for at least 30 days. And guys, this is the reason why the ANC and not the ANC, the DA and the government are in court. It's because of this section 15A. We will get back to that. So Section 53, it says that compliance certificates, this is still under the key amendment. Compliance certificates, under the compliance certificate, it says that, number one, employers seeking to do business with the state must obtain a certificate of compliance, confirming, number one, compliance with sectoral targets or reasonable for justification of compliance or non-compliance. So for people who want to do business with the state, they must obtain a certificate of compliance confirming, number one, compliance with the sectoral targets or reasonable justification for non-compliance. Number two, submission of the latest employment equity report. Number three, no findings of unfair discrimination by CCMA or courts in the past 12 months. Number four, no breaches of the national minimum wage in the past 12 months. So this is for the people who actually want to do the business with the state. So if you are not a black person, because this is basically a discrimination against the people that have the businesses but are not black people. If you are not a black person and you want to do business with the state, you must make sure that you have a certificate of compliance confirming, number one, compliance with the sectoral targets or reasonable justification for non-compliance. Number two, submission of the latest employment equity report. Number three, no findings of unfair discrimination by CCMA or courts in the past 12 months. Number four, no breaches of the national minimum wage in the past 12 months. And number five, non-compliance may lead to the cancellation of the state contract. So right now, you guys are forced. Business people right now are forced to basically apply these quotas. So still, under the key amendments, it also talks about the reporting flexibility. So under the reporting flexibility, it says that the requirement for annual employment equity report to be submitted on a specific date has been removed. Reports are now due on date and in a manner prescribed by the minister, with the employers required to justify delays. The requirement for annual employment equity reports to be submitted on a specific date has now been removed. Reports are now due on date in a manner prescribed by the minister, with employers required to justify delays. So still under the key amendments, it talks about psychometric testing. So under psychometric testing, it says that the requirement for the Health Professions Councils of South Africa to certify psychological testing has been repealed, simplifying assessment. Under psychometric testing, it says that the requirement for the Health Professions Councils of South Africa to certify psychological testing has been repealed, simplifying assessment. Still, under the key amendments, it talks about the labor inspector powers. Under the labor inspector powers, it says that labor inspectors can now issue compliance orders or request written undertakings from the employers to enforce equity obligations such as preparing employment equity plans. So under the labor inspector powers, it says that labor inspectors can now issue compliance orders to or request written undertakings from the employers to enforce equity obligations such as preparing employment equity plans. So still, guys, this is the last one under the key amendments. It talks about removal of voluntary compliance. Removal of voluntary compliance. So under the removal of voluntary compliance, it says that employers with fewer than 50 employees can no longer voluntarily comply with affirmative action provisions, further reducing their administrative burden. And this is the reason why people say that this is going to lead to people actually being unemployed, because companies right now, they are sitting back and saying that, guys, can we cut so that we don't have to comply with this nonsense of these people? I'm sure this is what many CEOs and many shareholders are saying, that, guys, maybe we should cut. Maybe we should cut our workforce so that we don't have to comply with this affirmative action nonsense of these people. And this is, again, the reason why people say that this Equity Amendment Act, it is going to lead to a lot of people basically being unemployed, because this is what the companies are going to do. This is what the companies are going to do. And all of these things will fall at the feet of the people that have actually signed this into law. It will fall at the feet of the president of the country for actually signing this law. When people start being retrenched, so that the companies can say, okay, guys, we don't want to have over 50 employers. If we have over 50 employees, it is a mess for us. We will have to comply with that nonsensical affirmative action of the ANC, and we cannot afford to do that. So let's cut these people so that we don't comply with any of these things. This is going to lead to a lot of people actually being unemployed. But yeah, it's fine. Let's not let the fact get in a way of a good story. So the impact, number one, it says that for small businesses, employers with fewer than 50 employees are exempt from affirmative action obligations. Example, developing equity plans or submitting reports, allowing them to focus on growth and job creation. Number two, the impact for designated employers. Those with 50 plus employees must align their equity plans with their sectoral targets, justifying non-compliance and ensure compliance to secure state contracts. So they are dangling these state contracts in front of these CEOs like this, in front of these business people, to say, guys, if you want to get these state contracts, you must just make sure that you have a lot of black people in senior powers. You must just make sure that you have a lot of women in senior powers or people with disabilities, so that we can consider giving you these state contracts. If you don't do that, then you are not getting any of these state contracts. This is what the government is doing, man. This is this is absolutely unbelievable, man. I don't want to lie. This is absolutely unbelievable. So this is the Employment Equity Amendment Act. So let's go to why political parties are fighting. Let's go to why the DA is basically in court to say that, no, man, the ANC cannot be justified to do this, man. You cannot do this. You cannot do this. So this is Section 15A. And Section 15A, guys, you remember it says that the Minister of Employment and Labor is empowered to identify national economic sectors and set numerical employment equity targets after consultation. These targets aim to ensure equitable representation of designated groups across all occupational levels. Draft targets must be published for public comment for at least 30 days. So the DA says that why is the Minister of Labor and Employment being given so much powers to go into the businesses, to tell the businesses that, guys, we understand that we as the state, we have actually failed the people of this country. We have failed to grow the economy of the people of this country. We have failed to transform the lives of the people of this country, but we want you as businesses to start hiring these people. If you don't hire these people into senior positions, then you're gonna have a problem with us, because we are the government. It is our job to ensure that the people are empowered, but right now we are abandoning our responsibilities, and we are saying that these are your responsibilities right now. If you do not comply, you're gonna have a problem with us, and this is the reason why there's a court fight. This is the reason why there's a court fight. I mean, guys, let's just sit back and just wallow in this. Can you just imagine the minister of Ramaphosa's failed administration going into different sectors, going into different companies, telling these people how to do their work? Don't you find it very ironic that the same people that have actually failed to transform the lives of the people of this country now acting all holier than thou, telling the businesses, the same businesses that are hiring majority of the people that are working in this country, telling them that, guys, this is what you need to do, and if you don't do this, then you're going to have a problem with us. Can you just imagine that, guys? Because right now, Ramaphosa and his people from the ANC, they will tell you that, guys, this is the way of the ANC to transform the lives of the people of this country. This is our way of transforming the life of the people of this country. But I can tell you right now for free that this is not the way to transform the life of the people of this country. This is not the ANC transforming the lives of the people of this country. This is the ANC basically admitting that they have failed to transform the lives of the people of this country, because it is easy as ABC. If you want to transform the lives of the people of this country, then you need to have a good performing economy. You need to improve the economy. If the economy works, then you will have more people actually having their own businesses instead of trying to push these people into other people's businesses. I mean, I remember Vusi Thembekwayo. Vusi Thembekwayo once said that it is not about the number of black people in senior positions in these white businesses. It is not about that. It is about the number of black people owning their businesses and actually thriving. This is what the government should be pushing for, to ensure that people can start their own businesses in this country and those businesses can thrive so that they can hire more people. This is how you transform the lives of the people in the country. You cannot transform the lives of the people in this country by squeezing black people, women, and people with disabilities into the positions of power, into the already established businesses. Because if these people actually think that this is transformation, this is a joke. Even if all the companies in this country can say, okay, we want to have black executives, we want to have women in the executive positions, we want to have people with disabilities in executives, that will not result in transformation, because a lot of people on the ground will still be unemployed. Even if all these companies say that, okay, Yako, Yosef, we don't want you to be the CEO anymore. Get out. We're going to hire Ngaba Yomuzi, come. You are now the CEO. Even if all these companies do that, it will not yield any positive results, because still majority of the people on the ground will still be hungry. But if you want to transform the lives of the people of this country, you have to make sure that the economy thrives. And when the economy thrives, you're going to have people opening up their own businesses and a lot of people basically thrive. So would you rather have the ANC pushing the people into the businesses that are already established, or would you rather have the ANC basically pushing for the policies that are going to make sure that the economy thrives so that everybody can prosper? Because if the economy doesn't thrive, people are not going to prosper. These people can scream all they want. They can scream all they want. This is just grandstanding. This is not doing anything for majority of the people that are on the ground that have been failed by the government, because this is one thing that the ANC needs to address before they actually address all of these issues that they are talking about. They need to address the fact that they have failed the people of this country. They have failed to grow the economy for the people of this country. Now the people of this country are down and crying and hungry and poor. And poor. I mean, if you look at young people in this country today, a lot of young people, I can tell you, a lot of young people in this country, they are unemployed. A lot of young people in this country are unemployed. And I remember the ANC, with the ANC Youth League, coming out and basically encouraging young people to start their own businesses. You know, guys, you need to start your own businesses. And the young people said, okay, it is fine. We are depressed with this thing of going around and applying with the CVs because we are not getting any responses. So we're going to start our own businesses. You remember, guys, especially after COVID, a lot of young people started their own businesses. And guess what? The statistics are saying that 60% of young people that have started those businesses failed. 60% of young people that have started their own businesses, they have failed. Why? Because the ANC could not even keep the electricity up. The ANC could not even keep the water in the taps. And these young people were the casualties of the failures of the ANC government. This is what is happening. Right now, you have a lot of young people that will tell you that load shedding destroyed my business. Load shedding destroyed my business because we live in the townships, and I have a small fast food joint. I sell the fat cakes, I sell the chips, I sell everything. And when the lights go off, people are looking at me as someone who sells food to say, Thomas, we don't have electricity. Can you please do us chips for 25 rand? Can you please do us this for 30 rand? And these people cannot even provide these services because there is no electricity for them. So we've heard testimonies of many young people saying that because I didn't have water, my business died. I opened a car shop, a car wash. I opened a car wash. Me and my friends, couple of my friends, we opened a car wash. But we cannot operate that car wash because there is no electricity. And if there is no electricity, we cannot operate the hoovers. There's no water, and if there's no water, we cannot wash the cars. And if we cannot wash the cars, we cannot get any money. These are the issues that are not being addressed by this government. But right now, they are saying that, no, forget about all the people that are on the ground. Let's push for this so that we can transform the lives of the people of this country. And the whole ANC government, the whole African National Congress as a whole, they believe that this is the way to go because these people are clueless, because these people are out of touch with the reality of the people on the ground. It is because these people are just the fat cats that think that people are eating their rhetoric. But if you actually sit down and start to apply your mind to some of these things that these people are saying, you will actually understand that most of this is just grandstanding. So the Employment Equity Amendment Act, it is not going to transform the lives of the people of this country. Pushing a couple of people into senior positions of already established companies, it is not going to change the situation of the people on the ground. Majority of the people on the ground, they will still be hungry. Majority of the people on the ground, they will still be poor because these people do not want to focus on the economy. They do not want to say that, okay, guys, what can we do? Which policies are actually better for us to improve our economy? Because if our economy works, everybody's gonna be good. No, they don't want to push for accountability. They don't want to do anything about their lawlessness. Companies are leaving this country because there is no law in this country. Companies are leaving this country because their property rights are threatened. And this actually results with more people being left at home unemployed. But this is not something that you will hear any of these people basically address. They don't address any of those. But they want to say that by squeezing few people into the positions of power, into the companies that are already made, this is how we are going to transform the lives of the people of this country. This is a shame, man. This is a shame. This is absolutely a shame. I don't want to lie. You know, guys, I've tried to hold myself, man. I've tried to hold myself for days, and I was like, what the hell are these people talking about? What the hell are these people talking about? Because right now, the ANC, they have failed to create a conducive environment so that the businesses can thrive. They have failed to do that. They have totally failed to do that. More companies are leaving. People are losing jobs. We know of people that have lost jobs. I know of someone who has lost his job last week. People are losing jobs. People are being retrenched left, right, and center. Then you have these people saying that, no, we are transforming the lives of the people of this country. And you have a lot of voters that are ignorant. They don't even want to think, clapping hands and saying that, yeah, this is the way to go. No. Guys, let's be honest, guys. If we want to be honest, if we want to push this country forward, we cannot push this country forward by actually being ignorant. We need to push this country forward by actually being honest with the things that are happening in this country. You cannot transform the lives of the people of this country if you do not improve the economy. They failed to do that. They failed to do that. They failed to do that. Absolutely failed. Failed. Ramaphosa is a businessman. Ramaphosa is going to be able to convince the businesses to come. The investor confidence is going to go up into this country. Things are going to be so good. And people flocked into voting for Ramaphosa. People, they listened to the ANC. They flocked voting for Ramaphosa to be the president of the country because the ANC said that, okay, this is a billionaire. This guy knows what the hell that he's doing. So you guys must ensure that you vote for Ramaphosa. If you don't vote for Ramaphosa, then you will regret it because this guy is a billionaire. He's going to have it on lock. He's going to have it on lock. The investor confidence is going to go up. He's going to arrest corrupt cadres. He's not going to allow the ANC and their tender to destroy this country. He's not going to allow that. 8 years into his presidency, man. 8 years into his presidency. There is not a single thing that we can say that, okay, this is what Ramaphosa has achieved. This is what Ramaphosa has achieved. And I understand, again, to be out of the point a bit, this is the reason why they want to regulate the podcast. This is the reason why they want to regulate the podcast. Because they can see that their mainstream media friends, the narrative that the mainstream media friends is trying to push, it is no longer working. The people, man, are now flocking into these online publications. People are now flocking into YouTube, man. People are on Facebook. They are getting their information no longer from the mainstream media. And they hate the fact that the mainstream media, it is no longer the only source of information. They hate that. They absolutely hate that. So they are saying, no, we need to regulate the podcast. What do you mean you need to regulate the podcast? What do you mean you need to regulate the podcast? They need to shut the podcast down, because if they don't shut the podcast down, then it is over with them. It is over with them. But fortunately, we live in South Africa and our forefathers didn't die so that we can be silenced by the idiots in government that cannot even do their jobs. Our forefathers didn't die so that Kusela Diko, a woman who has been embroiled in 100 million rands COVID-19 scandal, can go around saying that the podcast should be regulated. No, we are not going to allow to do that. So guys, this is the reason why the DA has basically went to the court. And to be honest, the ANC is not happy at all with the fact that the DA has went to the court to say that the minister has no right to go into sectors and to tell the sectors what to do, man. Like, these people have no right. These people have no right. And this is not going to transform the lives of the people of this country. So this article, it says that the ANC slams the DA's legal action as anti-transformation. The DA is challenging introduction of numerical targets for employment equity, saying the law is based on race and hinders job growth. It is a truth. How are you going to have a job growth when you have a policy that says that companies that hire over 50 people will have to comply with this nonsense of affirmative action? How are you going to have a job growth? Because the companies will say that, okay, we just need to have 40 employees. If we can get to 40 employees, it is fine. It is fine. So, of course, it is going to hinder the job growth. It is going to hinder the job growth. Absolutely. Absolutely. And for the companies that already have more than 50 people, maybe let's say this company has like 60, 70 people, they are going to retrench because they don't want to comply with this nonsense that has been introduced. So the article continues to say that the ANC has criticized the DA for challenging part of the Employment Equity Act, saying its biggest partner in the government of national unity was opposed to transformation. This is not transformation, guys. I have spoken my lungs out about how I feel about these people saying that this is transformation. This is not transformation. This is just grandstanding. And it says that the DA went to the court on Tuesday to challenge the constitutionality of the Section 15A of the Employment Equity Amendment Act introduced. The DA went to the court on Tuesday to challenge the constitutionality of the Section 15A of the Employment Equity Amendment Act that introduces numerical targets for the representation of Black people, women, and people with disabilities for companies with more than 50 employees. The DA argues that the law will further drive unemployment and hinder job growth. It wants everybody to have a fair access to jobs based on the merit and not because of the color of their skin. The ANC said the DA it is anti-transformational as the act was intended to redress past injustices. How are you redressing the past injustices when you're going to have few people in the positions of power? How are you addressing that? How are you addressing that? I have never seen people thinking that they can address something by actually not addressing the root cause of it. This has been the ANC like throughout the years, and this is the reason why we are so pissed off with the people that have voted for the ANC all of these years, because the people that have voted for the ANC, they've actually allowed this mediocrity to continue happening in this country. They've allowed total mediocre to happen in this country. These people have never addressed the core issues. No, they just grandstand on every issue. They just grandstand. Quote, the regressive action is not only an affront to the Constitution, but the direct assault on a very foundation of South Africa's transformation journey. The ANC said on Tuesday, quote, we must remind the DA and its allies that South Africa's Constitution explicitly recognizes the need to redress past injustices and to achieve substantive equality. The two parties have recently locked horns over several issues since agreeing to form the Government of National Unity, most recently over the budget and a proposal of VAT increase. Before that, the two partners were in dispute over the legislation passed by the previous administration, including the Bella Act, National Health Insurance, and Expropriation Act. The fractured relationship between the ANC and the DA has seen growing calls for the latter to be expelled from the multi-party union. So the ANC, we know that, is calling for a lot of people in the ANC. They are basically calling for the DA to be excluded from the Government of National Unity. They want Ramaphosa to get rid of the DA in the Government of National Unity. This is how, it just shows how small-minded these people think. Like, these people, they actually forget that the DA is the one that actually put Ramaphosa to be the president of the country. So if you get rid of the DA, then the motion of no confidence, pala, Ramaphosa is impeached. I mean, like, are these people actually serious? Some members of the DA have also called for the party to withdraw from the Government of National Unity, arguing it is not making the necessary impact in the coalition. They have accused the ANC of not being willing to share power and behaving as if it enjoys sole power. And there's a debate around why the DA should continue being in the Government of National Unity. Some people are saying that, but what's the point? The ANC continues to do as they please. And some people are saying that, no, but the ANC needs to be held accountable. And when it comes to things like the increase of VAT, when it comes to things like this, and because right now we also know that Ramaphosa will be submitting the papers to the courts, basically explaining why he signed the National Health Insurance into law. So the DA is doing a wonderful job in the GNU. I don't know until I was one of the people who was basically advocating for them to leave the Government of National Unity, but they need to stay on course and take every matter to the court. You remember Panyaza Lusufi was basically laughing. Panyaza Lusufi was basically laughing at the DA, saying that no, the DA, they are always in the courts. The DA is always in the courts. And people in the comment sections, they were saying, yeah, they are always in the courts because you guys are thieving, you guys are just stealing, and you are not doing anything to improve the lives of the people of this country. So right now they are taking you to the courts, and you hate them for that. And I'm sure that there are a lot of people that appreciate the DA for actually taking a stand against the ANC, unlike those lapdog political parties that are in the Government of National Unity, ensuring that the ANC gets everything that they want. So continue to speak about the Employment Equity Amendment Act. There's an interview that Helen Zille did on Newsroom Africa, man, and this is a fight. This is going to be a fight. Expected, because you know that the ANC, man, you know, I always say that these people, it's either they are aligned with the ANC or they are aligned with the government. But when you listen to South African journalists, man, they are frustrating to listen to. So let's hear this conversation between Helen Zille and this woman on Newsroom Live.
The DA is heading to the High Court in Pretoria today to challenge the Employment Equity Amendment Act, arguing that it gives the Labour Minister unchecked powers to impose quotas on companies. The second largest partner in the Government of National Unity has launched a constitutional challenge to Section 15A of the Act, which allows the minister to set equity targets across 18 economic sectors. The party maintains that these are quotas and harm the economy and affects job creation. Let's talk about it with the DA's Federal Council Chair, Helen Zille. Helen, good morning. Welcome to the program as always. Just set out briefly and in the main why you're going to court today.
And guys, by the way, Helen needs a better webcam, man. You know Helen Zille, she has this webcam. I don't know. Like Helen Zille, she needs a better webcam, man. I don't want to lie.
Program as always. Just set out briefly and in the main why you're going to court today.
Morning, Iman. Well, you said it very clearly and summed it up well. What we have here is a draconian tightening of the employment equity laws to give almost totalitarian powers to the minister to set targets backed by huge fines and the risk of criminal prosecution for firms that employ more than 50 people who don't meet those standards. Now, if you want an instant job killer, it is a law like that. And it's also unconstitutional. Section 9 of the Constitution is the Equality Clause, and Section 9.2 of the Constitution allows a measure of fair discrimination to address the injustices of the past. And that we accept, completely we accept that. But the measures have to still meet the benchmark of fairness, and it is the onus on the people who set the discrimination to determine that the discrimination is fair. And we say that this amendment act really does not meet that bar at all.
Yeah.
Because what it does is it says to every company in each of the 18 sectors that they have to meet a sectoral target, not an individual firm's target, a sectoral target set by the minister on pain of being fined 10% of their turnover. Now, for almost all companies, being fined 10% of their turnover puts them out of business.
Right.
That's immediate job losses. And who is going to invest in a country where the minister can tell you what your quotas are and then make sure you are punished severely for not reaching them and sending you into bankruptcy?
So
that is a job-destroying act.
So the ministry has hit back and said that these aren't quotas, that quotas are something else. And it isn't quotas because what you are given the right to do in this particular setting is to justify in cases where you haven't been able to meet these targets, why you haven't been able to do so. So in other words,
I mean, like, if you justify why you cannot hire such and such, if you justify why you don't have enough numbers, these people are going to penalize you because your justification is going to mean nothing because the Minister of Labor has already been given the powers. So what if you submit a letter of justification to say that, okay, this is the reason why we cannot apply these quotas. And the minister says that, okay, I don't think that these reasons are valid enough. So we're going to charge them 10% of their turnover because she has that power. She has that power. So what do you mean that just because the companies can now write a letter to say that, okay, this is the reason why? It doesn't mean that the minister is going to listen to that. It doesn't mean that the minister is going to listen to that. And I can tell you now, the minister is not going to listen to that because their goal is to ensure that you have these people that are replacing these people in job places. This is what they want. They want to replace the people that are in the senior positions with the black people, with women and people with disabilities. This is what they want. So don't think sitting there that if you think you're going to write a letter, these people will sit down and actually listen to what you have said and apply their minds. This is the ANC that you are talking to at the end of the day. This is the ANC that you are talking to.
Saying that there is a flexibility. How does that match up with what you've described as draconian and totalitarian?
Well, firstly, setting a target backed by massive penalties is no longer a target, it's a quota.
Of course.
And if you don't meet that target, and if you're threatened, for example, with losing 10% of your turnover or being criminally prosecuted, the onus is on you to prove why you haven't done that. The onus is on you. The time, the effort, the money. People are going to say, well, I've got capital to invest. I've got a good idea to form a business, but I'm not going to do it in South Africa. I'm going to do it in all the places in the world that are actually making it easier for me to invest, not more difficult.
What's your proof for that?
Well, Firstly, it's completely standard that businesses invest where they can get return on investment with least government interference.
I mean, like, it is common sense. Do you actually think that the people who have the businesses, the people that are hiring, majority of the people that are working in this country, do you think that these people would actually appreciate having a failed minister there telling them how to conduct their business? The same people that have failed to provide the people of this country with basic services, telling them how to run their businesses. Do you think that these people that have started these businesses with their blood, sweat, and tears, do you think they are going to listen to them? They are not going to listen to them. And they will never appreciate the fact that there's the same ANC ministers that have destroyed this country and basically looted this country are coming into their offices and telling them how to conduct their businesses. They are not going to appreciate that. It is simple common sense. It is simple common sense. It's common sense. But common sense, it is not common anymore.
Right, but let's talk about it in South Africa. Sorry, Helen, just to sharpen the question, right? Because this applies to us. So where's that happened to us? What's the evidence for that? That it's been, for all the reasons that you say, a huge turnoff for investment in South Africa. What facts do we have to back that up?
There have been several studies that have been done, and you can go and Google them, in which businesses have been asked why they aren't investing. And number one reason was always electricity insecurity. And the second most common reason was the race laws and the government's capacity to impose huge bureaucratic obstacles in terms of race laws before companies, and they're not going to invest in those circumstances. So, for example, the most recent example and very high-profile one is the mining industry. Nobody can prospect in South Africa. No one can open a mine. No one can invest unless they give away a third of their investment to BEE partners. And instead of many, many people investing during the commodities boom, there was none because people said, I'm not going to do this. I mean, another very good example is Starlink. We haven't got Starlink because of these kinds of laws. And the critical thing is that the role of government, especially when you've got the highest recorded unemployment rate in the world, the role of government is to make it easier to invest, not more difficult to invest.
Yeah, but for every Starlink, you have an Amazon. I mean, Amazon's invested in South Africa. It hasn't been a turnoff for all businesses, and that's why I wanted to go into the detail of actual investment where people said we wanted to put in X billion dollars in South Africa, but we decided not to because of this particular reason. But there's another aspect to all of this, Helen, and this is the reality of where South Africa sits. Do you accept that racial inequality in hiring is still a structural problem in South Africa, or do you believe we've moved past that? Especially when you look at the numbers. White people occupy 7% of the population, 66% of top-level management posts in the private sector. There's the 2023-24 Employment Equity Report. And again, I know you know all of this. Top management, white individuals holding 62%. Of those posts, African individuals who are 80% of the economically active population, occupying only 17% of those roles.
So I guess the question should be, okay.
And without enforceable targets, many private sector companies have simply refused to transform on purpose. So that's why this law now, my understanding is from what the ministry is saying, has to be tightened to hold people's feet to the fire.
So guys, this is what we spoke about. This is what we spoke about earlier on. It is not about the number of people. It is not about the number of black people in these already established companies. It is about the number of black people that can start their own businesses and actually thrive. The question to the minister and to the people that are complaining that, okay, 60% of these positions are held by white people. Who started those businesses? Who started those businesses? Because one of the reasons why we are saying that this law, it is discrimination and it is racist, is because only the companies that are white-owned, Indian-owned, Afrikaner-owned have to comply? What about the businesses that are big, that are black-owned? Why are those companies not subjected to the same laws as these companies? Because if you look at the companies that are black-owned, the majority of the people that are occupying the high positions are black people. So why don't the government say that, okay, we're going to look at all the companies, it doesn't matter who started these companies, and we're going to ensure that everybody is equal everywhere. Okay, that would have been a different debate. But the fact that these companies that are started by black people are still run by black people, most of their positions of power are held by black people, but they say nothing about that. So are you guys telling me that you are not going to focus on economy, the same economy that would actually allow black people to own their own businesses and do as they please? Now you want to impose black people into the companies that were probably started by the Afrikaners, the white people, the Indians. Does it make any sense? Because to me, it doesn't make any sense. And this actually feels like it makes black people to seem incompetent. It actually puts black people into a bad light. Because if you think about it, it's almost as if you can say, black people will never thrive on themselves. Black people will never thrive into themselves. We will have to hand them something. It doesn't matter. On the ground, we are handing you the grants. Up there, we are handing you the quotas. This actually puts black people into a bad light. And this is something that I hate. I'm not saying all of this because I hate black people. I'm saying this because I love black people. I want black people to go out, open their own businesses, and actually thrive. And this is what a good economy would have actually achieved. Instead of these people grandstanding by pushing few black people into the positions of power and to say that we have transformed the lives of the people of this country. This is a shame, man. This is a shame. Who cares who occupies these positions of power? It is their businesses. It is their businesses. Who cares? Who cares? Who cares? Fix the economy. If you fix the economy, you will have black people running their own businesses and doing as they please. You guys are crying today because you are saying, no, these white people are occupying all the positions of power in all of these companies. The same companies that they started with their own blood, sweat, and tears. These Indians, no man, who the hell are these Indians think they are? How can these Indians start their own companies from the scratch and occupy all positions of power? No, we want the black people to be squeezed into these positions of power. Instead of actually pushing for a law that is going to enable the black people to open their own businesses so that they can thrive too. But they want to hand over black people. They always want to hand over black people. And this actually puts black people into a dark hole that I hate. I hate it so much that we have the people in this country that are not confronting these people about the issue of the economy. To say that if you don't work on the economy, the lives of the people of this country are not going to be improved. If you don't work on the economy, the black business people are not going to thrive. But they just want to hand over people things. They just want to hand over people things. This is shameless, man.
Africa, or do you believe we've moved past that? Especially when you look at the numbers. White people occupy 7% of the population, 66% of top-level management posts in the private sector. There's the 2023-24 Employment Equity Report. And again, I know you know all of this. Top management, white individuals holding 62% of those posts, African individuals who are 80% of the economically active population, occupying only 17% of those roles. And without enforceable targets, many private sector companies have simply refused to transform on purpose. So that's why this law now, my understanding is from what the ministry is saying, has to be tightened to hold people's feet to the fire.
Well, the first point is, where did Amazon invest? They invested in the Western Cape. They invested in the Western Cape because we do our best to remove obstacles for investment. That is why the Western Cape has far lower unemployment rate than any other province in the country, because we make it our business to remove obstacles to investment, to remove bureaucratic hurdles, to take away this racial craziness of race identification. I mean, we're soon going to have a race classification act, because now every employee has to get a form, you fill it in, and you have to note what your race is. Now, who's going to say that I can't identify as a black man tomorrow? And who's going to prove that I'm not? The point is, we're going back to apartheid race classification, where people are judged on their melanin count, not their capacity, not their commitment. And so where you have these fantastic investments that we've had, look at where we've had them and then ask yourself why.
Yeah, but Cape Town's not in an island. I mean, Amazon strategically, and if I just go back to some of their, because we were talking about it deliberately, and I don't have all the facts about the detail around why Amazon invested in South Africa, but...
So why would you come with a topic if you don't have all the facts? So right now, you are at a position where you are debating about something that you don't have the facts to. You don't have the facts to speak about the investment of Amazon. So why? Why are you debating about the investment of Amazon if you don't have all the facts? Why?
You know, it's for all of the reasons that don't only exclusively exist in Cape Town, around internet connectivity, around our ports, around basically being an enabling environment for investment. I mean, Cape Town doesn't exist on its own.
The Western Cape is the most enabling environment for investment in South Africa. And therefore, when a company says we need an investment in Southern Africa, where do they choose? Where the most enabling environment is. And you've answered your own question. So what you've got here, and the issue of top management posts, which is a tiny number of posts compared to mass unemployment. The critical problem is unemployment.
Exactly.
Not the scramble for top posts in South Africa.
It was just an example, Helen, and also, you know...
But you're interrupting me, Iman. You asked me a long question with lots of statistics, but you don't let me answer.
I apologize. Please go ahead.
Okay. Yes. All right. So if you're going to say to companies, these are all the bureaucratic hurdles that you've got to get through, and they say, forget it, I can invest anywhere in the world, and if I have to invest in South Africa, I'll invest in the Western Cape, which tries to remove those barriers and not increase them. If it is going to create mass unemployment, what's more important? Now, the question here, we've just listened to this tragic story about no money for school feeding. And we heard one of the people say, well, we can't get jobs, so we can't feed our children. So they've got to be fed through the education department. But the education department, which is perfectly transformed in the Eastern Cape and KwaZulu-Natal, can't deliver food to people because of what the Equal Education spokesperson quite rightly says is bureaucratic inefficiency and administrative incompetence. Now, what are you going to do? Are you going to try and get food to children? Are you going to try and get people into jobs? Or are you going to start worrying about the 1% of jobs at the very top?
It's a case in point.
I mean, like, this is the reason why I'm saying that being worried about these top positions, it actually shows that these people are not serious. Because it is a tiny number. But here on the ground, you have a lot of people. So the problem is here. The problem is here. The problem is actually dealing with unemployment. It is not about forcing few people into tiny spaces. It is about actually helping majority of the people. That's why I said from the beginning that, guys, honestly, they are not dealing with the root cause. They are not dealing with the real problem. This is not them dealing with the real problem. And I find it very fascinating that you have these people all over the country defending this nonsensical law. This is a nonsensical law. That is not going to help the people on the ground. But they go around pretending like, nah, we are doing something for the people of this country, so clap hands for us. The top positions are nothing. We are talking about the majority of the people on the ground. That's why I said that even if all the companies can hire black people, women, and people with disabilities in the top positions, it is not going to transform anything because the majority of the people on the ground, they will still be hungry. I mean, like, guys, I'm just a simple guy living in the townships. But I can see this. How is it possible that these people that are in the government, these people that are holding the high positions of power, cannot even see this? I'm just a regular guy in the townships doing up and down and running my mouth on the internet. But I can see this. I can absolutely see this. And I know that I'm not the only one. But for some reason, these people that have massive power cannot see this. They cannot see this. I mean, like, listen right now. She's avoiding Helen Zille saying that the Eastern Cape and the KwaZulu-Natal education department is fully transformed. But today, they cannot even give the food to children. This is basically promoting incompetence. It's promoting incompetence.
That we've had all this time with all the enabling laws, and we still have that paradigm exist in boardrooms, and it does affect those executives who do want to get in and who are qualified to get in.
Of course,
I
but
want
you see, if you look at the court cases that are taken, I've got a colleague, Michael Bagram. He works in the CCMA 2-3 times a week. He's had 2 cases in all the years of somebody claiming they weren't appointed to a job because they were a person of color. This is not a major problem. People are searching for people of color to put into top positions. And what the impact of this employment equity legislation, even when it was much milder than the new Amendment Act is proposing, the impact is to have taken unemployment from 5.5 million in 2008 to 11.1 million last year. That is a doubling of the unemployment rate. Surely we take this evidence and we look at it and we say anything that is a barrier to employment in South Africa is wrong.
The DDG in an interview was saying that you're hanging too much on the Employment Equity Act, that it's not necessarily a piece of legislation that's designed to create jobs, but to support transformation. The DA says it supports transformation, but without targets or quotas then, what concrete mechanism would the DA use, Helen, to ensure that it actually happens?
I mean, like, guys, this is a very silly question, man. This is a silly question, man. This is a silly question, man. Like, this is beneath her, man. Even as a journalist, that is absolutely, I don't want to say the word, but this is silly, man. This is silly. So this is not about the job creation, but it is about the transformation. And she's asking Helen Zille what needs to be done. I mean, like, it is the economy. You remember the Americans, they always say that it is the economy, stupid. It is the economy. It is the economy. It has to be about transforming the people. And transforming the people, it will have to be taking them out of poverty. This is how you transform the lives of the people. She's asking a very obvious question. She's asking an obvious question.
In an interview was saying that you're hanging too much on the Employment Equity Act, that it's not necessarily a piece of legislation that's designed to create jobs, but to support transformation. The DA says it supports transformation, but without targets or quotas then, what concrete mechanism would the DA use, Helen, to ensure that it actually happens?
You know, this is the point. I mean, imagine an argument like that this isn't a piece of legislation to create jobs. It's a piece of legislation to achieve transformation. But all our evidence shows that this kind of legislation destroys jobs. Is the DDG saying that that's what he wants to do? The DDG of labor?
Of course.
That he wants to actually destroy jobs? Complete goal displacement. That's what he's doing. And all the evidence shows that. But the DA's proposal for transformation is a very clear one. The more economic growth you have, the more transformation you encourage. That's the simple equation. If you have rapid economic growth, which we believe that our policies can achieve, even if people want to be racist, they can't because there aren't enough minorities to go around for the jobs that will be created in a booming economy. The critical sine qua non, the point of departure for transformation has to be economic growth. And if you're going to destroy economic growth, you are destroying transformation. You cannot regulate economic growth by putting a cap and by discouraging investment. It's a contradiction in terms. And must our unemployment rate go to 55% before they realize that? You know, Kasatu says that the youth unemployment rate is 72%. What's more important? We've got to get those youth into jobs.
That's true. May I come in?
No, can I just quickly say this?
Sure.
In the not too distant future, even if you have a completely transformed top leadership in the economy, what is that top leadership going to do with a 72% unemployment rate?
Nothing.
Well, it remains to be seen, doesn't it? If they get that chance, maybe we'll see what happens. But I think when you talked about...
No, they are not going to do anything, man. They are not going to do anything. They are not going to do anything because those people would have been hired in a very stagnant economy. Those people would have been hired in a very stagnant economy. So they would not do anything. You can hire those people. You can transform the companies in the ways of the ANC. But it is not going to do anything about these millions and millions of young people that are sitting at home. So that was a very good question. What is important? What is important? Is the unemployment rate important, or is the grandstanding of the transformation important? What is important?
Creating economic growth, no one can argue with that. The question in South Africa is inclusive economic growth. It's getting more black people to play key roles in this economy. It's getting them into jobs. And that perhaps is exactly where the question lies, is what do you have on the table besides talking about economic growth? What is the DA's agenda, or, you know, what are you going to do? What is the tool you use to ensure that there are more black faces at senior management levels, that there are more black faces who are making decisions in companies, and more black players you know, in companies and corporations across South Africa? What is the DA's plan for that specifically?
First of all, I think we both agree that you're not going to get that unless you have economic growth.
Fact.
Secondly, I think we can agree that these measures of the ANC are going to kill economic growth.
Yes.
Those are two givens. So you're never going to have transformation without economic growth. So why is the government killing economic growth in the name of transformation? It's a complete contradiction in terms. Then we have a whole policy called our economic justice policy, which looks at real disadvantage and real drivers of inclusion in the economy on the basis of genuine disadvantage for which race is no longer a proxy. And the critical question is, how do we get that? And all of our incentives are in that economic justice policy, which are measured against the Sustainable Development Goals. We're the one party in South Africa that has got an entirely non-racial empowerment policy. And obviously, the vast majority of people who will benefit from it are black people, because the vast majority of excluded people are black people. But our worry is about including the excluded. And you're not going to get inclusive growth if you don't have growth. And you're never going to have growth if you have measures that kill growth. It's very simple. I don't know why it's so hard for people to grasp.
Exactly.
If the court challenge fails, Helen, will the DA support the law's implementation? I mean, I guess not. How will you continue to resist it politically?
Well, we go on appeal if we lose this case. We've got two particular cases or arguments in court. One is a substantive one in terms of the benchmark for fair discrimination. And we think that this particular law undermines the principle of fair discrimination. It certainly does not meet the benchmark for fair discrimination. That's number one. Number two, we've got a technical argument about the tagging of this particular act. We argue that it should have been tagged Section 76 of the Constitution, and they wrongly tagged it as Section 75. So we've got two major legs to our argument, and we are going to certainly push this right to the very end. And the fact is that if we lose a court case, you know, we're a party of the rule of law. But when we think laws are unjust and don't measure up to the Constitution, we challenge them in court. That's what we do.
Helen Zille, thanks for your time this morning. Really do appreciate it. Our cameras hopefully will be live in the Pretoria High Court when that legal challenge then goes live. The DA...
So, guys, the DA basically went to the court, and it says that the High Court reserves judgment in the DA's battle against the Employment Equity Amendment Act. So, in this article, it says that The Pretoria High Court has reserved judgment in the Democratic Alliance challenge to Employment Equity Amendment Act. The Pretoria High Court has reserved judgment in the Democratic Alliance's challenge to the Employment Equity Amendment Act. A ruling will be delivered at a later date. The matter was heard on Tuesday, with the DA arguing that the recent amendments are unconstitutional and violate the principle of equality before the law. The government is opposing the application. Advocate Ismail, representing the DA, told the court that the previous version of the Employment Equity Act achieved an appropriate balance between transformation and fairness. He noted that it prohibited quotas, allowed for flexibility, and enabled employers to set the target based on their specific operational needs. Jamie contended that the introduction of demographic targets amount to unfair discrimination, particularly against colored and Indian communities in provinces such as the Western Cape and KwaZulu-Natal, where these groups comprise a significant share of the population. And this is the truth. This is the truth, because these people, they only talk about black people, women, and people with people with disabilities. But I did talk about the colors. I did talk about the Indians, and I did talk about other groups, and saying that this is pure discrimination. This is pure discrimination, and I'm willing to listen to everybody trying to convince me that this is not discrimination. Because if it is not discrimination, why are you not looking to empower other groups, but you only want to empower the black people? The DA is challenging the Section 15A of the Amendment Act. So, guys, you remember that the Section 15A of the Amendment Act. This is what the DA is challenging. This is the sectoral numerical target, Section 15A, that says that the Minister of Employment and Labour is empowered to identify national economic sectors and set numerical employment equity targets after consultation. These targets aim to ensure equitable representation of designated groups across all occupational levels. Draft targets must be published for public comment for at least 30 days. So this is what the DA is basically challenging when they talk about the Section 15A. The DA is challenging Section 15A of the Amendment Act, which mandates the equitable representation of sustainability of suitably qualified individuals from designated groups across all occupational levels. This section empowers the Minister of Employment and Labour to set binding numerical targets for designated employers with a specific target. Minister of Labour, the Commission of Employment Equity, the Speaker of the National Assembly, and the Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces are all opposing the application. Of course, they are ANC lackeys. I don't expect anything much from them. Advocate Fana, representing the Minister and the Parliament, assured the court that the amendment would not negatively affect the employment or the economy. He rejected the DA's assertion that the law promotes racial bias over merit. I mean, guys. Quote, "We say no, that is correct. In the first place, it doesn't matter to quotas," said Nalani. Quote, "We will also argue that there is no violation of a principle as an act introduces a significant role for the minister." Nalani maintained that the act grants the minister the authority to implement numerical equity targets tailored to the specific needs of different sectors to promote transformation. So, the African National Congress has also criticized the DA for challenging the legislation in court. So, guys, this is the Employment Equity Amendment Act. I don't know, did I do a good job of basically covering this? Did I do a good job? Because I know that a lot of people, some of these people are going to be pissed off. But guys, this is the Employment Equity Amendment Act, and this is what has been happening until now. I don't know. Please tell me what you think in the comment section. Don't forget to hit that like button, and the most important part, subscribe. My name is Thomas Mabaso. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.